Walks like an animal, talks like an animal, must be an animal. Come hear the animals, talking animals, talking animals. It walks like an animal, talks like an animal, must be an animal. Come hear the animals, talking animals, talking animals.
This is a dog.
Good morning. This is Talking Animals on WMNF Tampa and WMNF.org. WMNF is a listener-supported. I'd love to have that David Grisman playing in the background. Oh, well. I tried to get some David Grisman playing for us in the background here, but this is WMNF Tampa and WMNF.org. WMNF is a listener-supported community radio station. I first want to thank those who are current members of WMNF, since they are the reason you're able to hear this program today. WMNF depends on your financial support, so you can do that anytime by clicking on Donate Now at WMNF.org. In fact, right now is a great time, WMNF.org. Click on Donate Now, and you'll see that in the upper right portion of your screen. My name is Glenn Hatchell, and I'm sitting in today on Talking Animals. In the background, eventually, I will figure out how to get David Grisman playing here. It appears that he's playing, but I don't hear him. Maybe someone else does. Oh, there we go. So tech support's first question would be, are you sure it's on? So my name, again, is Glenn Hatchell, and I'm sitting in today on Talking Animals, and this is the David Grisman Quintet from the album Dog Nation, and I am really excited about today's show, and I think you will be too. About every 3 or 4 months, I join Duncan on Talking Animals for a segment we call Ask the Trainer, where listeners call with a question about their dog or cat, and I give them some ideas of the reasons for the behavior, and if appropriate, something they could try to help them with the problem. But sometimes a listener will pose a question, and I think this would be great for a panel discussion. So today, that's what we're going to do. Our panel in this case, joining me on today's episode, are two people who joined me the last time I hosted Talking Animals. Mariah Shesky is the owner of Blue Sky Behavior. She's a certified dog behavior consultant located in Missoula, Montana. Mariah specializes in helping dogs who show signs of fear or aggression, or focus on helping the human end of the leash understand why the dogs are doing what they're doing. Mariah is available for remote consultation. Her website is blueskybehavior.net. And our other panelist this morning is Karen Plesia, owner of By Your Side Pet Behavior Consulting, located in Boston. She's a certified cat and dog behavior consultant. She works with the ASPCA and the Humane Society of the United States as a feline behavior specialist and behavior responder. Karen's also available for remote consultation. Her website is byyoursidepet.com. So first, Mariah, Karen, are you with me?
Good morning. This is Karen. I'm here.
Good morning. You're both here. Thanks to Jessica for doing all kinds of stuff in the background right here for me to make all of that happen. There's something I learned very, very early on when I started being a volunteer here at WMNF, in that 10 seconds is a lifetime in radio. So that has come to help me throughout the years, and it did this morning. So first, I don't know if any of y'all know any reasons or anything behind it, but in not so breaking news, since I did mention the Humane Society of the United States, they have a new name called Humane World for Animals. I noticed that when I was on their website the other day. So I don't know if they're doing a rebranding. I don't know if it affects something on an international aspect, but somebody wants to do a deep dive on something like that, there's a topic for you today. So this is how we're going to do the show today. I have selected some questions from the previous segments of Ask the Trainer. That is a piece that Duncan and I have been doing we've done 12 episodes of Ask the Trainer, and I have selected some questions from those shows, and I'm going to pose those to Mariah and Karen this morning. So I'm excited to do this today. I think you guys, the listeners, you who are listening today, are really going to enjoy it as well. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. So before we get started, I know one of the things that Duncan often asks me when we're doing Ask the Trainer is at the beginning, is there anything on your mind or things that you've seen lately that you want to spend a minute or two talking about? Mariah?
Well, it is springtime out here. I think it's springtime most places, but we're really feeling it. It was 70 degrees yesterday in Missoula, and everyone is emerging, which is amazing and so fun and great to see everybody out with their dogs. But something that's kind of been on my mind is, just more people excited to get out, a lot more traffic on the trails, snow melting, and maybe just, some mud and maybe some things uncovered by the snow that people want to look out for. So just, getting up and getting going this springtime is bringing on a lot of traffic and a lot more calls, people looking for help. So that's kind of on my mind.
That is what that's one of the things that I love about that little opportunity at the beginning, is to really talk about some of the things that companion animal owners have to think about right now. Karen, how about you?
Oh, wow. Something that's been on my mind both personally and professionally is, and I've had a surprising number of clients that I've worked on this with, is the impact of pain on our pets' behavior. I have 3 senior cats right now, and so there's a lot of stuff going on as they get older, but I've also had a handful of both dog and cat clients whose pets have been exhibiting some behaviors that indicate that maybe they're in some discomfort. And so always making sure that you are advocating for your pet at the veterinarian when it comes to ruling out potential physical health causes for behavior. So that's been on my mind quite a bit lately, and I've seen some of that in some shelters that we've been in lately as well. Dogs whose behavior have been impacted by either chronic conditions or injuries, and so don't ever underestimate the power of taking care of their physical health.
So, just a follow-up or maybe a parallel question to that. What about, depending on what's going on with the animal, things like massage, acupuncture, any thoughts along that line or experience that you've seen? Does it just depend on the animal?
I think to some extent it depends on the animal and also on what's going on with them. Mm-hmm. In my experience, and Mariah, certainly chime in if you have had experience with this, but couple of we'll take acupuncture as an example. When we worked at a shelter, all of us together, the the organization paid for an acupuncturist to come in and work with some of the senior animals that we had at that shelter, and that acupuncturist also did cold laser treatments, and we saw some amazing results in those senior animals, and decrease in pain, increase in mobility. It was amazing. I have a senior cat that I tried to take for acupuncture, and it was more stressful for her than it was worth. She had a very hard time with it. She found the pressure of the cold laser treatments uncomfortable, and so we didn't continue that because moving her out of the house into the veterinary clinic and having to put on the little goggles and do all those things ended up being too stressful for her, even though theoretically it could have been helpful. So you don't want to do anything that's going to create more stress than it helps. So
that's actually, that's so much of what we talk about with animals can apply to people, because acupuncture for me, phenomenal. For my wife, has absolutely no effect. And laying there for that period of time, to her, is just not worth it. So it's interesting. And I mean, it is the same with animals. So this is WMF Tampa. Let's go to our, let me ask her our first question. So this was from our very first Ask the Trainer episode. And this emailer says, recently, friends brought their 2 dogs over. We were all outside on our driveway. Their dogs were leashed. Excuse me. Their dogs were leashed, as well as our female lab. When my husband leaned over to pet one of their dogs, our dog became kind of aggressive. What is that about? So, Mariah, do you want to start with this one?
Wow, Glenn, way to start off with a big one.
Really?
I think thinking about keeping in mind that every dog is an individual, just as we were talking about, every dog is different. Something I do when I chat with clients is really try and dig into why the behavior is occurring, and then we can figure out how to best move forward for that individual family and dog. In this case, I would definitely want to ask some more questions. But I think there's enough specifics there to start. We've got a couple dogs on leash, which can be a great way to help new dogs get to know another dog. It can also potentially cause a little bit of frustration in some dogs. So that's one thing I would think about is, were some of the dogs on leash frustrated that they couldn't say hello? Was that causing stress? Were all the dogs feeling a little stressed because of the leashes or being in a new location?
Now, when you say that, what would the dogs be doing? Give me an idea of, let's say if these 2 dogs are, are stressed, uncomfortable right there, what kind of things with the visiting dogs?
Yeah, it can present in a number of ways, and this is something we talk about frequently, is really learning to read body language and dog communication really well. And that's something I urge everybody to do is, get online. There's lots of great, webinars, chat with trainers, get on YouTube. There's lots of great information on, dog body language. But, they might be hiding. They could be reserved, nervous, maybe crouchy a little bit, or they could be pulling forward and maybe lunging and barking. That can present, that can be an indication that a dog is nervous as well. And so, the other kind of the big thing I think most people would be thinking about here is there's potential resource guarding of the owner. And so, resource guarding is really complicated, and that's why I said, way to start with the big one, is there's a range of behaviors associated with guarding, right? It could be resource guarding a bone or a food bowl or a sleeping spot, and it can be their person too. And so that's a pretty complicated one, but I think if we do determine that, resource guarding, maybe the dog being a little a little nervous about someone approaching his owner or something along those lines. Once we identify that, then we could know how to best move forward. What are your thoughts, Karen? Everything you just said. I do think, and I think going over, maybe I missed you saying this, but sometimes just you mentioned reaching over the head can be a little bit scary for a dog. But it sounds to me like there were just a lot of dogs in a small space, and that's usually something I suggest to folks that they try to manage, particularly when there are new dogs, is just not to that crowding sort of mentality can be a little bit overwhelming. So management
actually,
of the situation and reading the body language.
Let me follow up to exactly what you said right there, Karen. So if they were to say, okay, they're coming back over this afternoon, how do you recommend we handle this?
I would probably start with, it doesn't sound like there was actually tension between the dogs prior to the petting. Am I correct in recollection of that question? Like the dogs seemed to be fine until the husband reached to pet one of the other dogs. Is that right?
That's how I imagined.
Okay.
Excuse me. That's how I imagined it.
Let's say there was tension between the dogs. I would probably start with a parallel walk. Make sure that both dogs or all the dogs can walk together nicely. They can redirect their attention to their guardians as they're walking, and then move into the backyard together. Depending on the body language, I might drop the leashes right away. I might spend a little bit more time sort of holding lightly onto the leash to see how they do. But let's then assume that everybody's fine together. If you're going to interact with the dogs, make sure that it's not in a tight space. You're not reaching overhead. I wouldn't, reach over one to get to another. Just sort of manage your own body language. And then if you're going to offer treats, offer them on opposite sides of your body to keep the dogs separated when you're doing that kind of thing. So I think just being aware of your own interactions. I think so many times it's being aware of how we manage the space. Mm-hmm. But Mariah, do you have anything you would add?
Yeah, I love that. I love the starting with a parallel walk. That's something I'll do with a lot of clients is, just go out in the yard, and if you have a fenced-in yard, do some laps. Just walk. Can be really helpful. And, yeah, that's the other thing I would add is, maybe hold off on giving the dogs a lot of attention at this point. Maybe just kind of be there to manage, be there to kind of make sure everyone's doing okay. But sometimes I think our interactions can cause concern, and that in this case, that might be what's going on with potential resource guarding. Whereas if we just walk and we can observe our dogs and let them kind of get to know each other at their own pace and on their own, in their own way, and without us sort of getting involved and making things really complicated. I think that we do that a lot, inadvertently, of course. But just kind of, letting them sort of, again, assuming there's no aggression, but letting them just sort of get to know each other, and we can reinforce the behaviors that we like, just like Karen said.
Great. I think you really raised some great points. One of the things that I have was thinking through much of what you were saying, such as the walks and everything, is distance. Because when the dogs are further away from each other, they're not going to be as aroused as they will be as they get closer. And that's something that I learned very early on, was distance is always your friend. And I think when dogs are meeting, assuming that, if we just assume that they were all meeting for the very first time, then, that distance is key. So.
Yeah, and I know when I meet new people, we're not instantly best friends. We take some time. We go have a coffee. We go have a walk. we get to know each other a little bit, and and I'm guilty of this as well. But bringing a new dog over, sometimes I do. I rush it a little bit. I feel like they should all just get along because they're dogs, and why wouldn't they all be best friends right away? But if I can slow down and even just giving them, 5-10 minutes doing that parallel walk, or giving them just a minute or two to get to know each other without that real close proximity, it can really make a big difference.
That's so key right there. Sometimes it's only 2 minutes, and all of a sudden, all of what someone thinks is the tension that's happening between the dogs just melts away. And all of a sudden, you've got wags, and they're just kind of, whatever. So, excellent. Okay, so let's move on to question number 2. I hope I can get through it here. This seems to happen for the long questions coming up. So this one is going to get a little complex as far as the solution to it. So this was actually a call that came in on our 12th edition of Ask the Trainer. I have 2 dogs. One is a 16-year-old Shih Tzu that I've had since he was 6 months, and the other is a teacup poodle that's about 6 years old. She's a rescue, and I've had her since July. Every morning, there are about 4 of us, at least 4 dogs, and 2 prams that walk at Crystal Lake Park in Clearwater. The teacup poodle wasn't housebroken or been on a leash or anything before I got her, but she's learned fast. At the park, there are 2 bridges that we cross over water, and because it's early in the morning, a lot of ducks will roost up on the side, and once one of those dogs start barking, they all start. And I'm wondering if there's some way, and because the poodle is so small, she only weighs 7 pounds, when we go around and we end up seeing more of the ducks, they're quite large, she wants to lunge at them as if, she's Mighty Mouse. So I'm wondering what I can do to start correcting their behavior so that one dog doesn't set off the whole crew. So, Karen, you want to start with this one?
I
know there's so many. I loved this question when it came in because there's so many layers to it, but it's also, there's so many unknowns. So we just have to kind of build a straw house and work with it.
Well, I will be honest. My very first recommendation, or my first question, I wouldn't say my first recommendation. My first question would be, do you need to walk there? Can you take the dogs for a walk somewhere where there aren't the ducks on the bridge? Or can you avoid the bridge? If you know that the ducks were a trigger, why set the dogs up to, quote-unquote, fail by continually walking by them? So in the short term, if possible, I would avoid that environment.
I do know that's not a not a possibility. And part of it is because there's a reason water is in the name of the city, Clearwater.
Yeah, I understand. But that particular spot...
This is a geographic thing. So much like, or unlike Mariah's clients, what is what is snow? What's melting? The ice? I don't understand. It's 87 here today in Tampa.
Yeah.
So,
well,
anyway.
if it's not possible, I will be honest. I think there's got to be a way to avoid the ducks on a daily basis. But short of that, or while you are avoiding the ducks, you can work on teaching the dogs to do something else when they see the ducks. Barking is a really natural behavior for dogs, and so we've got to ask them to do something that's going to otherwise fulfill their need to express themselves. And what that looks like might be different for each dog. The teacup poodle who's stuck in the tram or the pram, whatever it is, might not have as much freedom to say, go target, a a tree or something. I mean, you figure out what works best for the dog. But I would work with them one at a time on learning an alternate behavior to barking at the ducks, or work with them on on learning to just simply redirect their attention to their human when they see the ducks. I think that's not going to be as fulfilling for them because they want to do something. But that's how I would start it. I honestly, my gut though is for now, try not to walk in that particular because that environment, that setup is triggering for them clearly. The ducks on the bridge, all four of them together, can we change that environment somehow to set them up for success? Mariah, you're a better trainer than I am, so you go.
Well, my first question was, I didn't envision the dogs in the pram. I thought we were walking with babies in the pram, and then the dogs were walking.
There's 2 dogs in the pram, and there are 4 dogs on leash walking.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a lot. I love it.
But you're right. That is all 3 of us. Our first thought was, whoa, that's a lot, especially when you're dealing with something like this.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, I agree with Karen. If the first thing I always talk about with clients is how to try and help the dogs not rehearse the behavior that we're trying to fix. And so if we're going to dive into a training plan, a behavior change, behavior modification type of plan, we need to find a way to have them not rehearse the behavior at the same time. So that, those 2 things kind of go hand in hand. If we work on training and then tomorrow we walk them past the ducks and they're all exploding and barking again, we're just not going to get anywhere. So I agree that, there has to be some level of management. But at just kind of the quick things that I think we could try, because sometimes quick fixes are somewhat effective. I would try, first of all, determining, is it the teacup poodle that is nervous because she's little and she's, in the pram or whatever that looks like. Is she nervous, and can we help her feel more confident about the ducks, or is it excitement? So that would be my first question, is let's talk about why the barking is occurring. Because the treatment might be a little bit different based on whether the dog is nervous or afraid, maybe some uncertainty there because of the size of the ducks, or is it really exciting? And she's like, hey, do you see the ducks? I'm really excited. So once we figure that out, then I think we can move forward. But my quick fix might be, let's say it's the poodle that is kind of starting all the barking. My first thought might be, could she, and this would be an alternate behavior, like Karen was mentioning, could she lick some baby food or something, an approved food, out of a squeeze tube, or something that is on a licky mat? Maybe just we're approaching the bridge, stick licky mat in front of the poodle's face and say, hey, let's just lick this while we go over the bridge and get past the ducks, and then take the licky mat away and see if we can move on and prevent sort of that spark of barking that is occurring. So that's a quick fix that may not be the end, a potential quick fix. That may not be the end solution, but it's something to at least try.
And it could possibly be something that helps with the current situation, which in and of itself would be a good thing. If it's reducing a little bit, then we know that progress is being made, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The bad behaviors. Yeah, and that's really a good idea with like the lick stick or a mat or a lick mat or something along that line.
Yeah, yeah, and again, licky mats are really inexpensive online. You can find, or you can just use something you have at home, just a Frisbee, a plate, whatever you want to bring. Freeze it maybe if you want it to last a little longer, or you can just use those travel shampoo bottles that you just get at any store. You have to thin it, thin the baby food or canned food or whatever it is you're using so it comes out of that small hole. But it's a really inexpensive way to at least try it and see if it works.
I like that.
Yes, great ideas. All right, so that's our first two questions. We're going to do one more dog question before we have a cat question. And it is WMNF Tampa. This is Talking Animals. My name is Glenn Hatchell, sitting in for Duncan today. And my guests are Karen Pleschia and Mariah Shesky. And I am posing some questions that came in through our Ask the Trainer episodes that we do on Talking Animals. And I'm posing some of the questions that I found very interesting for discussion to Karen and Mariah. So the next one came in our second episode of Ask the Trainer. I have an 18-month-old golden doodle who has lived here since she was 3 months old. She practically trained herself as she grew up housebreaking, basic manners, but she is very hyper. In the last few months, she has started sleeping in my bedroom, which is fine. I love her to death. But when I have anything in my hand, she thinks it's time to play. And time to play to her is biting the you-know-what out of my heel. If I move, she'll chase me and bite my heels. If it's a toy in the backyard, she'll bring it back to me, sit, but as soon as I pick up the toy, she's biting my ankles. I stop. I told her no. I'm like literally trapped in the backyard. Do you have any suggestions? Mariah, you want to start with this one?
These are great questions.
Yes. This is why I love doing Ask the Trainer.
These are great. And really common. That's one I hear of quite a bit. I guess just to reassure the caller, that age, that adolescent age can be so hard. They're exploring the world. They're trying different things. They're excited. There's a lot going on with that adolescent brain, and right around or before a time where a dog reaches social maturity. So it's really common. I think that most trainers and consultants would agree that this is about the time when we get the calls, from 8 months to 2.5 years or 3 years, when we start hearing about dogs maybe doing things that don't really work for us. So, the first thing I would want to think about is, how are all the dogs sort of, daily, needs being met. Maybe this dog, now that it's a little bit older, maybe he needs a little bit more exercise, or maybe he needs a leash walk or a run at a dog park or a fenced-in area or something along those lines to help just kind of get some of that energy out. Some of this sort of sounds to me, again, without knowing all the details, it sort of sounds to me like, maybe some displaced frustration or not really knowing what to do. So I'm just going to jump up and grab whatever. So that might be my first question is, does the dog need a little bit more exercise or maybe a little bit more, maybe some, mental stimulation, some enrichment games, maybe a frozen Kong or a different food toy, things like that. That might be the first thing I would start thinking about before diving into training. What are your thoughts on that, Karen?
Yeah, I agree. It sounds to me like the need for enrichment in a way that's meeting this particular dog's needs. And one question I always have, I don't know if it's an issue where you guys are, but I don't think that many dogs get at that age get enough time with other dogs in a safe way. So I would want to know, does this dog have the opportunity to play appropriately with one or two of his doggy friends so he can get that kind of play behavior out? I had a boxer client who their puppy just wasn't getting the opportunity to play like a puppy with other puppies, and so was trying to play with them. And they were a retired couple in a very boxer way, jumpy and mouthy and all of that. And I kept reiterating to them that this dog needs an outlet for that energy, and an appropriate outlet that you're not able to provide as a human. So we set up some play dates with another one of my clients, and that was wonderful. And I always knew when they had fallen off of those play dates because I'd get a call and say, the dog is jumping on me and biting me. And I'm like, when was the last time he played with his friend? And so I think that for some dogs, not all, that consistent opportunity to interact with other dogs and play in a puppy-like way is really important.
So let me ask a follow-up question to this, and I will direct this one towards you, Mariah. And I'm gonna play the owner here. So it seems like to me, though, that she'll bring the toy back. It's just when I have anything in my hands. So if I'm walking around the house, she's not doing it. But if it's something I'm carrying in the house, she thinks it's a playtime. If it's outside with a toy, anything that's in my hand when I try to walk. But with the toy, she drops it. She loves to play fetch and things along that line. So is there something that can be done within, knowing that she kind of seems to know what to do, she just can't control herself?
It sounds like it does still sound like there's some, like you're saying, can't control herself in certain contexts. Certainly
Right.
Environment matters. So I still think there might be some sort of
18-month-old excitement.
Yeah.
Everything's a game. You've got it in your hand. Oh, it's time to play.
Yeah. But let's say the dog is, getting out and has play dates and is, really appropriate in all other ways. I might dive into, what that fetch looks like. I might think about training like a 2-toy fetch or 2-ball fetch or something, and really focusing on, letting the dog know they're doing great. They're bringing it back. Good girl. Drop it or leave it, whatever words you love. Good girl. Maybe a wait. Mm-hmm. Teaching a little bit of a wait before just going. So I think thinking about, I think a lot of people will call this impulse control, and, helping them be successful. Teaching a wait, teaching just like a temporary wait while I put your food bowl down. And then, okay, go ahead. Some sort of release word. Maybe wait before I throw the ball. And then, okay, that could be really effective. And I'm not talking about a long-term stay that's really hard and frustrating and stressful in that moment, but maybe a temporary wait, and maybe a little bit of maybe you say wait and the dog looks up at you and you say, okay, great job. Some voluntary waiting or voluntary check-ins might be where I would start.
Great. Good. That's kind of what I was thinking in some ways. And everything that y'all said is correct, especially an 8-month-old dog who, being a doodle mix, it's going to be probably 70, 80 pounds, so there's going to be a lot of energy. I see them out walking. So for any dog, not even this, but just about any dog that shows the desire to express those kinds of things, that's a perfect age to really have them do that, because it could potentially help you with some current behaviors and behaviors down the road. All right, we've got about 15 minutes to go here on Talking Animals. And here's our first cat question. Yeah. So we have four. So, Karen, we're going to direct this one to you initially. So we have four cats at home, and the most recent one has been with us about a year, is kind of a nutty, charismatic guy, but there's a cat that's certainly my favorite of the current crop and hangs out with me a lot in this one room where I spend my day. Really nice cat, super sweet, kind of small, and a little bit lean, so anytime he comes in to see me, anytime he comes in to see me, the newer cat basically bullies and attacks my pal. So now the smaller cat has to kind of plot this course to come in so he can hopefully avoid being attacked or bullied by the other cat. Once he jumps up and finally lands next to me and then hangs out, it's good. But this happens multiple times a day because this is the room where I spend most of my day. My pal is not the only cat that gets bullied, but this is the cat that's the smallest and probably has the least defenses against that. But some of the other cats will just fight back. So just wondering if there are some steps we can take to protect the smaller cat from the bully, or steps with the bully cat to keep this from happening what seems like all the time.
Whoa. Okay. I have more questions than I probably have answered, because with four cats, there's a lot to take into account. I would want, I would want to know with the small cat, I guess that's the pal, the friend, the little cat, age and health. Certainly, are they older than this new cat that they've had for a year? Are they healthy? All of those kind of things, because that can play into certainly how confident this cat is in terms of defending him or herself. But without having all of the information, the initial thing I would look at is the distribution of resources around the house. Where are there places for the cats to perch, to rest, to make sure they're being fed in very separate spaces, make sure litter boxes are distributed, because very often when there's a concentration of resources, and I'll come back to that phrase in a second, when there's a concentration of resources, it can raise tension in the household to begin with, so it might not be super obvious. But if you think about your capacity and your animal's capacity for dealing with stress as a cup, and it's always half full, you don't have a lot of room to deal with additional stressors. And so if there's already stressors because the environment is not well set up for the cats, they're always going to have this baseline level of stress. And then when something triggers them, they're going to have a shorter fuse to deal with that. Concentration of resources. This woman is clearly a resource, or man. I shouldn't assume it was a woman who wrote you, but this person is considered a resource to both of those cats. And so, how do you divide yourself? That's a hard one. I would encourage this person to spend structured, separate time with the cats. I like to implement routine for animals who might be stressed. So if this person is spending most of their day in that room and little cat is hanging out with him or her in that room, then can they carve out time at other times of day to interact in a way that's meaningful for the bully cat? So that might mean interactive play that simulates hunting. That might mean brushing. That might, whatever the cat likes. But I would also suggest, in addition to the environmental arrangement, I would look at what can you do to add some structure and meaningful enrichment into each of those cats' days to decrease that baseline stress level. In terms of suggestions specifically for each cat, there's so much more information I would want to know before I said, "Oh, you can do this or do that." But is the little cat in the room first? Is the bully cat in the room first? That might change how I approach this. Does it matter?
Well, it sounds like the bully cat's in the room because when the little cat comes in, he has to plot a course. But once he gets in the chair, everything's fine. So it's that approach to the chair. So, but that also kind of the bully cat may be positioning himself where if you want to come in here, you've got to answer these 3 questions.
And that's a situation where, I mean, if someone is up for it, and I do find that cat guardians can be a little bit different than dog guardians in this case. If a person is up for it, I might teach them how to, I might suggest that they train their cat and show them how to do this to go to a specific spot, right? So when little cat comes in the room, they go to a bed on a chair that's next to my desk. And they get reinforcement there for going to that bed so that then little cat can come to his spot. It's going to be, a gradual process. But if I've got someone who's like, yeah, I'd love to learn how to train my cat to do that, then, let's do it. That we make the cue for going to your bed on the separate chair, that little cat comes in the room and you get something really good when that happens so they don't feel the need to beat up on little cat.
Yeah. Well, I think I happen to know the person who asked this question, and I think what some of the things you've said there are something that they could very well be very excited to try. But, of course, though, too, we're also recycling past content of Talking Animals. So some of these questions are 3 years old. So I didn't want to throw that in because it has nothing to do with what the question was at that time. Because, like you said, it's so pertinent in questions that are coming up today. These are just so great. So we've got about a little more than 10 minutes to go here on Talking Animals. So here is another one that's going to go into multiple levels, multiple layers. I imagine this is going to be our last question because it's got a lot of discussions behind it, but I love this question. About 3 months ago, and this is current. This was a question that came in 3 weeks ago. About 3 months ago, we adopted a female dog between 3 to 5 years bully mix. She was an owner surrender due to aggression at the local county animal shelter. It also said she was good with cats and ferrets, which is a big reason why we adopted. The first week we had her, she barely made a sound, no barking. In subsequent weeks, she's become a fierce barker, but under certain circumstances and not when she is alone, verified via a nanny cam. Fierce barking with neighbor's dog on the other side of the privacy fence. They cannot see each other. She's not reactive when leashed walking, curious but no pulling or barking. With certain people, she seems to have an instant dislike for. Others, complete opposite, total acceptance. We have not allowed her near children. They set off barking. She is fairly obedient, seems to have been well cared for in her previous life. My 3 questions. What is the best way to curtail her 5-alarm barking? How can we cautiously expand her social life? Should we have her evaluated? Mariah, you want to start off with this one?
Yes, evaluated. And I would say that with the caveat of making sure to seek out somebody that is qualified to evaluate and discuss and troubleshoot things like aggression, fear, some of these more complex behaviors.
Okay, right there then. How would someone
obedience?
How would someone seek out someone like that?
Yeah, great question. For me, I always recommend people check out the IAABC website. They can check out ccpdt.org website. Those tend to have trainers that have demonstrated their their experience level. They're required to complete education every year. And so those can be great places to start. And again, to really look at their profiles of individual trainers in your area and make sure that they have experience and the qualifications to treat and troubleshoot things like fear and aggression. So I think that would be a great place to start. And then, you already acknowledged this, but things like behaviors associated with aggression and fear they can be really complicated and really multi-level, just like you were saying. I know that when I feel nervous about something, it could be because I had an experience that is causing me to feel that way, or it could be because I'm having a bad day, or it could be, because I don't know why I'm nervous about snakes. It doesn't make any sense. I've never had a bad experience with a snake. So, there can be a lot of complicated reasons why, but I do think getting to the root of the underlying causes of the behavior is really important. Is this dog nervous? Is the lunging and barking at the fence, does it have to do with the fence? Does it have to do with frustration? Does it have to do with being nervous or scared? So those are kind of my big thoughts initially, and then again, without going into all the other questions I have, safety is our number one thing to think about. And so there are a lot of things we can do, to promote safety, and again, a qualified instructor consultant will be able to help you with those things, but things like fences and leashes and muzzles and, portable X pens. There's lots of ways we can make sure that all the other dogs and people are safe. While,
what's you said something there, X pen?
Yeah, that's it's like a portable exercise pen is kind of the full name. Yeah, and it's kind of like a wire crate that a lot of people use. It's that wire material, and they're just panels that you can move around. So you could put it along, a doorway, and you could kind of troubleshoot, work with something on the other side while keeping everybody safe. Or you could take it to the park and set it up in a like a playpen style. So those are great. Yeah, great little tools to use to help keep everybody safe. So those are my first thoughts. Karen, do you have thoughts?
I have had all the same thoughts as you. You have a dog that has a known history of aggression, whatever that means.
Exactly. We have no idea. There's no idea. There's no details behind that.
And so that's, without knowing what that aggression was, what it looked like, what triggered it, you have to go with what she's seeing now. And yes, I agree with Mariah completely. Find a qualified behavior consultant or...
So let's just real quick, what... If there was one thing, two things, three things that you would recommend or suggest that she could try to curtail the 5-alarm barking, any thoughts?
At a minimum, I think, again, with way more details involved, at a minimum, she could start to associate good things with the thing that is causing the concern. So at a distance with safety. But, let's say there's, a person outside the fence. As soon as she sees the person, she could say, what a good girl. And
obviously with the dog being next door, it's pretty easy to set up sometimes. Well, I'm sorry. It is the dog next door. So that is the kind of thing that could be set up. So
is it possible also, like I had a client who from inside the house, their dog was barking at the neighbor dog. And we managed the visual. We just had them put up some frosted film on the windows on that side of the house.
That's
I've
great.
Had people.
That's a good idea. Again, it comes back to kind of blocking the visuals a little bit.
Or
so
who
it
put
is.
shade cloth on their fence.
We do need to wrap things up, and I would like to thank both of y'all. This is WMNF Tampa. Karen, would you like to give us your website if people would like to find out more about you?
Sure, it's byyoursidepet.com.
And Mariah?
I'm at blueskybehavior.net.
Thank you both for being here today. This was great. I loved it. It is time for headline news from National Public Radio.